Hi everybody, Miss Rachel from the Farmingdale Public Library here, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own rock candy. For this activity, you will need some water, some sugar, a plate to pour some of that sugar onto, like I have here in this paper plate, a measuring cup, a popsicle stick or a pencil you could use, any kind of stick that you could lay across the top of your glass jar. So in my case, this popsicle stick fits, of course. You definitely want your jar or glass to be glass, not plastic, because we will be pouring hot liquid to it. We will also need some string or yarn, and depending upon how lightweight your string is, you might also want some paper clips to tie to the bottom. If you want your rock candy to be a different color, you can add some food dye to it, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Similarly, if you want your candy to have a flavor, you could add some cinnamon to make it taste like Red Hots, or you could add flavor extract like lemon extract to have it taste like a lollipop. And the last thing that you need, now we do ask for grown-up assistance with this, is going to be a stove, like I have my camping stove behind me. You're going to need a pot, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pour 1 cup of water into our measuring cup and put it into our stove. I already have mine here, and what we want to do is we want to start making it simmer so that, as you can see, the steam's coming out, it's starting to bubble. While that's heating up for my friends who are cooking along with me, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our string, and if you're using lightweight yarn like I am today, going to tie the paper clip to it so that this way the bottom will stay down and the string will float at the top. And then I'm going to dip it into some water so my string is nice and wet. Okay. Now I'm going to take that wet part of the string and I'm going to roll it back and forth in my sugar so that this way the crystals start sticking to my yarn. See how much thicker that got? The reason that we're doing this is we're making what is called seed crystals. In other words, crystals of sugar or salt or sand like to adhere to more of the same kind. They like to stick together. So if it has something to grow on already, our rock candy will grow that much faster. And now I'm going to tie my string to my popsicle stick. Okay, tie it nice and tight because this is going to be sitting inside our glass jars for a couple of days. I'm going to put that down and set that off to the side. Now, for our sugar, definitely get a grown-up's help with this. When your water is boiling or starting to boil, so it's bubbling but it's not like little lava, we're going to start adding sugar. Now this recipe should take about 2 cups of sugar to 1 cup of water, but you might need a little more sugar, I find, if you have, say, an older bag of sugar and it's clumpy. That means that moisture has gotten into it. So you're going to need more sugar because there's already water inside the sugar. Okay. So, here we go. I'm going to take my cup of sugar, take my lid off, and I'm going to pour this in and start stirring. So take your spoon, take your ladle, like I have here on this napkin, and we're going to stir it. And we're going to stir it vigorously. Oh, I should move that over. And we're going to want to bring that up to a boil. And as it starts boiling, we're going to add in our 2nd cup of sugar. And we're going to keep gradually adding sugar into our mixture until no more sugar dissolves in the water. In other words, we're going to melt all the sugar in until no more sugar will melt in. And then you'll start to just see lumps at the bottom. Now you definitely want to keep stirring this as we go along because you don't want to burn your sugar either. you cook it, this mixture should get thicker and more syrupy, because that's what we're making, is sugar syrup. And when it is sugar syrup, we're going to let it cool and then pour it into our jar with some grown-up help and some bare hand potholders. Don't use your bare hands for this. Use your bare hand potholders. Alright, so I'm going to give mine a stir. And it's starting to thicken up. And if you want your candy to have a color or a different flavor to it, now would be the time to add it in. So I think I'll do this reddish pink color today. Now, if you're making more than one color, instead of putting it into your pot on the stove, put a little bit of your color into your jar and then pour the clear syrup into that. But since I'm only doing one color today, I'm going to just add it right in, blop, 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 a couple of drops, until it's the color that I like. Mine today is going to be a dark red, because I added a lot of red food dye. And you can turn it up a little higher if you want. But the idea is you want to keep stirring this until it's all dissolved and no more sugar will dissolve in this syrup. Should thicken up just a little bit as well. And if you find that it's not thickening up, you could add a little more sugar. I think I'm going to add another half cup or so. Oh, yes. Now that is what is called a supersaturated solution. By raising the temperature of the water, we can fit more sugar crystals into the water, but eventually it'll get to the point where the water can't hold anymore. Meanwhile, because we're heating this, the water is going to start evaporating. It's turning into steam and gas and going up, up, up into the atmosphere, which is good because this is going to force the shape of the candy syrup and force the shape of the sugar crystals to change from what looks kind of like beach sand in my cup here into a crystal, which we would eat as candy. Okay, and when you've got that syrup to be the right consistency and it's totally dissolved, I'm going to turn off my stove and I'm going to let that cool for a second so that it's safe to handle. Now, if you are going to be making multiple colors, as I mentioned before, put your food dye into the jar rather than into the pot, so then you could divide it equally and make however much you'd like of each color. The same is true if you're using multiple flavorings. But when it's cooled down a little bit and it's safe to handle, always use your pot holders, and we're going to start ladling in some of that syrup. Now be careful with the glass because it will be very, very, very hot once you put this syrup in. And I'm going to tilt this down just a little bit so you can see it better. And with my pot holder on, I'm going to use my ladle to pour my syrup in. Side for now, our last step is to take our jar. Now be careful, this jar is very hot, but I have my syrup in the jar, and I'm going to take that sugar stick that I made before with all those nice seed crystals on it, and I'm going to sit this into my syrup. Now you don't want the bottom of your string to touch the bottom of your cup or your jar, because what will happen is your crystals, as they grow, it might make the string stick to the bottom, and then it'll be really hard to get out of the glass. But now that this is sitting there, we're going to let this, I'll hold it with my pot holder, we're going to let this water evaporate and the crystals should start to form on the on the string. Now, within 3 to 5 days, you should have a pretty decent sized candy, but if you find that your crystals aren't growing, put it back in the pot, heat it up to a boil, and add another cup of sugar while stirring, with some help from your grown-up, of course. So then you can resaturate the solution, and then it should grow a little better. Conversely, if you find that your sugar solution is growing too fast and you've got a film, like an iceberg of sugar crystals at the top, you could either take a fork or another popsicle stick and gently go like this and disturb the top to pull out your crystal string without cracking the whole thing. So I hope you had a good time making some rock candy with me today. I know I sure did. And when this grows, it is going to be so tasty. So I hope you enjoy your candy when it's done. And I'll look forward to seeing you again at some of our other programs. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.